When you're starting out, you're doing everything on a shoestring budget, and so I think we actually circumvented the loading dock fees, and we were running into the convention center with security chasing us, pushing a portable dishwasher, and our booth setup was a portable dishwasher with keyboards and mice in it, and we had a bin of water where you could type in on a keyboard underwater and see it type on the laptop screen, and the whole booth was just a giant photo of a keyboard in water, a 10-foot by 10-foot photo backdrop behind us. And it was amazing to just see people stop in their tracks by that image, and the fact that you had keyboards and a dishwasher. It's just like, does not compute. The experience was incredible because we had multi-million-dollar booths all around us, and people would walk right by those booths, stop in their tracks at our shoestring budget booth with our dishwasher and our bucket of water. And as I said, we were 20 people deep the entire trade show. It was a great trade show experience. We'd done a press release, so the phone was ringing off the hook, and we'll talk about kind of pre-trade show strategies, press release being one of them. But that was our experience, that you can actually, on a shoestring budget, start your trade show experience. And of course, we've evolved since then, but a lot of the practices that we keep today in terms of our trade show strategy really develop from that economics model. When we go to trade shows, we share rooms. That started as an economic necessity, and now it's become part of our culture. Now, to be fair, that allows us to stay at some nicer places. So people are willing to share rooms, and we operate on the buddy system, and it's really strengthened our culture, even though that started as an economic necessity. You've got, there's thousands of exhibitors, or at least hundreds of exhibitors, depending on the size of the trade show you're going to. And so you have to differentiate yourself. And it really, our first trade show experience proved to us that it's not how much you spend on the booth, it's the image that you're projecting. And people want to see something different, something novel. And if you can project that in your trade show booth, that's how you're going to get results. As you mentioned, a lot of exhibitors at the trade shows have giveaways, and there's nothing wrong with giveaways. Giveaways are an important part of the trade show experience. You want to have people go home with something that reminds them of your company. But where I see so many companies make a mistake is that they draw people into their booths with a giveaway for maybe a Nintendo system or an electric guitar, Sony PlayStation. And that's a big mistake, because then you end up getting 1,000 leads of people that are interested in a Nintendo or a PlayStation or an electric guitar, and they're not interested in the products that you're selling. And the purpose of the trade show is to identify those prospects and opportunities. And you don't want to have your salespeople in their post-trade show tactics spending time weeding through people that have no interest in your products. So with Seal Shield, what we try to do is have giveaways that are related to our product, maybe a product sample, something related to infection control that's branded, something that really accentuates Seal Shield's products and services, and will remind those prospects who we are and where they got that giveaway. So in terms of giveaways, that would be my first tip. Don't give away something that's not related to your company and product, because you're just creating more work for yourself, filtering through those leads on the back end. That's another big tip that I'll give you. Go ahead and make dinner reservations as far in advance as you can. I'm on that countdown. So if they allow reservations 45 days in advance, 45 days in advance, I'm making a reservation for 8 people one night. If it's 60 days in advance, 60 days in advance, I'm making a reservation for 8 people. And I do that for every night of the trade show. Now, when you get to the trade show, if you have to cancel a dinner reservation, or if you can't fill in with a prospect and you only show up with 5 or 6 people, who cares? But if you get to the trade show and all of a sudden the hot prospect wants to give you some time and you can't get a dinner reservation, you've lost out. And certainly if you want to get great tickets, and I'm not talking about being up in the second balcony, if you want to be in the first couple of rows of some of the big shows that are going on during trade shows in whatever city that is, you've got to get far in front of it, and then you promote it. And so you get the right people invited. I like to hold a couple of tickets aside because you always run into someone at the show that's the hot prospect, and then boom, you've got it set up where they can do something amazing. And we've done a lot of concerts, we've done Top Golf, we've done bowling, of course, great dinners, but you have to plan in advance for that. I'll make another tip here. When it comes to the hotel reservations, a lot of times the trade shows will book up blocks of hotels. And so all the hotel reservations are extremely expensive. So a little tip is that when you go to these big trade shows, if the rooms are too expensive and you're operating on a shoestring budget, much as Seal Shield has done in the past, go ahead and book the cheap room, because the first day of the trade show, all of a sudden the room rates dump because they drop those holds. And so if you have to spend the first night in Vegas at the Excalibur, because that was the only thing that your budget would allow, be sure to check the rooms the first day of the show, because all of a sudden the Bellagio might be the same price for the rest of the week. So plan ahead for your dinners and your experiences, but then be ready to make an adjustment the day of the show with your accommodations, because you might be able to save some money and get into a better accommodation. We try to schedule other community events around the trade shows. So we started a healthcare advisory council, and the genesis of that was that we could meet at HIMSS, because all of our healthcare advisory council members are already budgeted to fly in. We might put them up for an extra night or two at a hotel. None of them do it for pay. So, we'll take them out to a nice dinner, spend a day with them in the advisory council meeting, and we schedule that around the HIMSS trade show because they're already going to be there. So that's super economical. And, there's other opportunities to do things like that if people are going to be in town for HIMSS. Another example is Seal Shield's very involved in women in IT. And that is hosted, in fact, it's being hosted by Seal Shield this year during the HIMSS show as well, because you've got all the healthcare IT folks in town already for HIMSS. What a great opportunity to have a community get together for an hour or two around women in the IT workplace, or around any kind of the healthcare advisory council, any event where you're trying to get those people in a room, because we know how hard it is to get all those people somewhere where they can be together in person, especially around COVID. People are doing fewer and fewer things. So if they're committed to attend a trade show, what a great opportunity to sit them down, take an extra few hours, take an extra day to accomplish something else. I'd also add, when you do these experiences, you've got the pre-show planning to get everything booked, get the right people to attend, but then you've got the post-show follow-up from that. So you've done a big event, you want to make sure that you're getting the ROI from it. So as you know, when we go to a concert, we're going to take the expensive $50 group picture that's done by the professional photographer there. And if we have to buy 20 copies of that, so be it, because that is the memorial. Now that's the giveaway that they remember things by. And if you're really smart and you're on top of your game, you take those pictures and then you tell folks, hey, I'm going to get this framed and send it to you. Where do I send this to? And now you've got that built-in personal follow-up. So you want to make sure that you're not just doing these events, that you've planned them well on the front end, that you execute them well to build those relationships, and that you have the follow-up built into your strategy. One of the biggest trade shows that we historically attended was CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, probably the largest electronics show in the world. It was in Vegas. It is in Vegas every year. And every year we would go. It's a very expensive show to attend, very expensive to stay in Vegas that week because there's so many attendees. And every year we would look at the ROI, and every year we'd pick up a couple of international distributors from that show. So we were able to justify it for a while, but it was tight. And ultimately we had to say, for what we're spending on this show and the number of quality leads that we're able to convert coming out of this show, we just get so much more bang for our buck from the healthcare specific shows, the infection control shows, that it's just not worth the cost for us to continue to do that show. And you have to be honest about that. You really have to look at the ROI that you're getting. And that's part of that post-show strategy, that you're able to measure the quality of the prospects and the conversion rate to customers, and see what kind of value you're getting out of the shows. And if you're not getting the value, you cut them. And there are shows that we don't do anymore, and there's shows we've doubled down on. And it's a little bit of a trial and error. So you've got to do the shows, see which shows work, and make that investment to see if you're getting the ROI. And if you're not getting the ROI, get out of that show and put the money somewhere else. And here's another personal tip for investing in these shows. You spend so much money to go to the show. You spend money for the trade show booth, you spend money for the trade show space. The hotels are all marked up, X% above their normal rates. You're entertaining, expensive dinners. I would say that once you're committed to the show, don't cheap out. You don't want to be spending the evenings. Well, you might want to be spending the evenings after the trade show laying in your room relaxing, but there's no time for that. Once you're invested in the show, go all in. It's every hour of every day. And if you're not doing that, it's wasted opportunity. So if you spend all the money for a trade show booth and the trade show space and your airline and your hotel, and then you don't spring for the fancy dinner for the prospects or some experiential event that you're going to be able to convert prospects into customers, then you're really wasting the initial investment. It's not all about just showing up at 10 a.m. in your booth and scanning leads. It's about building a whole experience around the trade show that's going to contribute to that return on investment. So once you're in, go all in. At this stage at Seal Shield, we're going all in. If we're going to do a trade show, we're going to take the time to do the press releases and we're going to put them out on the wire. We are going to plan those events and make those reservations for the dinners for prospects and customers. We are going to go all in. And then after the show, again, you have to be honest with the return on investment. Was it worth it? And if it wasn't worth it, you put those investments into other opportunities, other trade shows, other marketing opportunities. We talked about some of the giveaways that companies do at the trade shows. More important than that, I think, is the experiential giveaways. So people remember experiences that they have. And to the extent that you can leverage those experiences to build relationships with customers or prospects, that's always a goal of ours. So we always plan big events for trade shows. Pablo, you went to HIMSS in Las Vegas with us back in August, and we had rented out the whole first 3 rows for the Usher concert. We had customers there, some prospects there, and a bunch of our team there. And of course, we were easy to spot because we all wear bright blue surgical scrubs, being that we're in the healthcare space. And that was one of the big ideas that came about. And we've talked about this, but the HIMSS Healthcare Show, which is our biggest trade show every year, is an IT healthcare show. And it's always been a fairly formal show. A lot of people wear suits to the show. And a few years ago, our then chief sales officer, Scott Fillion, suggested that we start wearing medical scrubs as a marketing tool to promote our healthcare space, our healthcare position. And I was really opposed to it because it is a formal show. We wear sport coats and suits, but the team convinced me to try the scrubs, and it worked out fantastic. So we were all wearing bright blue Seal Shield scrubs, and we made a pact to wear them for the entire time of the show. And we've got a large group of people. We're like a walking billboard, and we got immediate recognition. People started seeing, who are those guys? And then that's the Seal Shield guys. And before you knew it, other people started wearing scrubs to the trade show. So I will take credit for Seal Shield starting that trend. And not only are we more comfortable at the shows, but it's a great marketing gimmick. And as a team, everybody's dressed up together in bright blue scrubs. Everybody at that Usher concert knew who we were. And we've had many experiences like that. We had front row seats for Lionel Richie a few years ago in Las Vegas. We were all wearing the bright blue scrubs, and Lionel was talking to me on the microphone. And at the end of the show, everybody had seen us. They wanted to take their pictures with us. And then the next day at the trade show, people are like, hey, were you at the Lionel Richie concert last night? And it just builds this whole awareness. And it also really projects that you're having fun, because trade shows are work, but you've got to have fun. And people want to engage with people who are having fun. So customers and prospects, if all other things are consistent, they like to be around people that they enjoy being around and people they can have fun with. And if you are deliberate about creating these experiential around the trade shows, and then you develop a reputation for that, you find that, people want to engage with you. And the same people every year want to know what's going on. And you develop those relationships that turn those prospects into buying customers. We make great products, but we like to have fun, and we share that not only with our employees, but with our customers and prospects. Well, there were a couple of things that we did for the first time at this last trade show, Pablo. And one of them was through our partnership with HIMSS. Obviously, they've forgiven us for the urinal screen debacle because we developed a great partnership with HIMSS. And through that partnership, we managed to have Seal Shields products throughout the trade show and at surrounding hotels so that attendees could actually disinfect their cell phones or their tablets at stations throughout the facility. And so that got us a lot of recognition at the show. And then it was all highlighted by the second thing we did that was different, which just got us amazing recognition. And that was the podcast that you talk about. And I didn't know what we were getting into. We'd really just met. I think that was the first time we'd spent more than an hour together in Las Vegas at the HIMSS show. And we set up that a podcast booth right in our trade show booth. And we just started pulling people in, and we would pull in customers, we'd pull in partners, we'd pull in competitors to talk about the issues around infection control, to talk about the issues around healthcare and healthcare IT. And the results were just amazing. Everyone at that massive trade show knew who we were. We were the only ones with a podcast set up, filming people as they come up, getting people that we normally would not have been able to talk to wanted to come on to the podcast for whatever their individual reason was, to promote their passions and their missions, their products and services. And we just got tremendous visibility out of it. And that's when I knew, Pablo, hey, we've got something here. I mean, this is amazing. Everybody wants to be on this podcast platform, and there really isn't another platform like it in the infection control space. So now, after the HIMSS trade show, which is where we kicked this whole thing off, we've been continuing with the podcast, having a live podcast every week with various guests around issues facing infection control and infection prevention. And it's been great for Seal Shield. It's been great for me personally, and it's been great for the industry. And we are going to replicate that for the second time here at HIMSS coming up this year in Orlando. And I think we'll do an even better job now because we'll be able to pre-schedule some strategic guests and then still have kind of that open mic setup where as opportunities come along, we can have them sit down, get them on mic, and start discussing the issues of the day. And, when someone does that, that again is building that relationship and giving you a great follow-up opportunity, because all those people, and Pablo, you were doing a great job of this for us at the trade show. As soon as they were done filming, they got a text or an email with the links, and overnight you were staying up late doing the editing so that we could get them clips in the morning and keep that momentum going. And then once we published those through our site, again, an opportunity to follow up with the prospect or customer, another touch point. It's really an experience like no other. So, it takes a little bit of courage to take that initial plunge, but I highly recommend it. We're definitely seeing the ROI out of the podcast that we launched at HIMSS, and we're continuing to get value out of that and looking forward to doing it at HIMSS again this year. There's a lot of ways to utilize press releases. We typically write our press releases in-house, and we use a wire surface like PR Newswire to get them blasted out. When you know that you do a big trade show every year, for us it's HIMSS, we try to arrange our product development announcements around the trade show. We find that those press releases in conjunction with a trade show get a lot of traction. That's not always going to be the case. You don't always have a new product coming out that you want to announce, but we do find that those press releases, those type of press releases, new innovation, new discovery, something new, that gets traction. And our strategy that we've learned utilizing press releases, and by the way, we use them for just about every trade show. Some announcements are bigger than others, but we always try to incorporate a trade show as a press release as part of our trade show strategy. And that's really the pre-trade show strategy. So we may have, in fact, for HIMSS, I think we have 3 press releases that we'll be dropping. We like to do one a week prior to the show, especially or at least 4 or 5 days prior to the show, within a week of the show. For the big trade shows, people are planning their days out. And so they're kind of doing their research ahead of time to see which companies and which exhibitors they want to visit. So we like to get an early press release out that sparks interest for people to make appointments with us pre-show. And then we usually have a press release that drops the day of the show or maybe the day before the show. Another major announcement about, come by the booth to see this new product, that kind of thing. So that's the timing that we utilize with our press release drops. And that's been highly effective for us to drive that initial traffic to the booth, get initial appointments set up prior to the show. We always use press releases as part of our pre-show strategy. A lot of times we'll use the trade show to vet a new product. So maybe a product that's not even in production yet, we'll do an announcement. We have some samples, we get input from the market at the trade show. And then maybe as a result of that input, we expedite the production, or maybe we shelve it. So the trade shows can really be great for product development, getting input from the market. And so regardless of the stage that the new product is in, we're trying to make that announcement around the trade show. Sometimes it works out great that the products hit the shelves. Sometimes we just have some samples. Sometimes it's completely vaporware, and it may not even materialize from that point, depending on the feedback we get from the trade show. I think it was our second or our third HIMSS, and it was in Orlando at the Orange County Convention Center. And, operating on a shoestring budget, you're trying to do all kinds of guerrilla marketing. And one of the great ideas that we had was that we made urinal screens for all of the men's restrooms. And then we have to explain to women what a urinal screen is. But in men's restrooms, we have urinals, and they put a screen in the bottom of that urinal so that it's a splash guard. And we put urinal screens in all of the convention center restrooms, the men's rooms, that said, your keyboard has 400 times more bacteria than this toilet. Come visit Seal Shield at booth number 123. And we got tremendous feedback from that. People would come running out of the restroom like, I just had to see you guys. That is genius. That is the greatest idea I've ever heard. So we got fantastic feedback from all the men who are using the restroom at the trade show. Unfortunately, we didn't get very good feedback from HIMSS, and HIMSS fined for marketing outside of the booth, which is against their rules. And they made us actually go in the next morning before the trade show opened with coat hangers and remove all of the dirty urinal screens from all of the urinals in the vast Orange County Convention Center. So that was not too much fun. They stripped us of all our trade show points. It took us a number of years to build that back up. And for a number of years, and I think still today, HIMSS internally, when they're doing their orientation and prep calls for their internal people, they bring up Seal Shield and the urinal screens as something that is not permitted. So we did have that experience. Good marketing, bad execution, I guess, in terms of the rules. And then, I've mentioned the medical scrubs, which have been a great tool for us from a marketing standpoint. But a few years, some of the women in the organization said, we'd like to get pink scrubs to differentiate ourselves. So the guys can wear the blue scrubs, but we want to wear the pink scrubs. And we said, okay, that's fine. And then these women decided that we'd get creative. And as you know, we're an infection control company. So it's all about making things that are dirty, clean. And so on the back of the pink scrubs, they had "Talk Dirty to Me" put on the back of the scrubs. And we got a lot of good feedback from that. But we got a little bit of really bad feedback. So a couple of folks were offended by that. And as a result, the pink "Talk Dirty to Me" scrubs were retired. I think I could still get you a pair of those, Pablo. We may have some in storage. But another example of, thinking it through. And, you don't want to do anything that could be offensive to anyone. And since you're dealing with a large group of people, you just have to err on the side of caution so you don't end up with egg on your face, like we did with pink Talk Dirty to Me scrubs. So those are a couple of the fails. I can think of maybe a couple of more, but those were really the notable ones that were not too funny at the time, but we can laugh at now.
I mean, I'm just going to ask it, right? Like based on the fine and what happened, you're obviously not going to do it again. You're not going to purposefully offend HIMSS again. But if I am somebody that is out there wondering if I should walk this line one more time to get all this publicity, should that person that's considering it maybe still do it based on the ROI of attention and publicity?
Well, we had a couple of thousand urinal screen protectors left over after they were banned. And so we had to do something with those. So at future shows, we would put them in the hotel bathrooms at the hotels around the trade show. So we wouldn't be in direct violation of the trade show marketing rules. This comes up. We had, as you know, a giant seal costume to represent Seal Shield, and we'd make the new guy wear that at the trade shows. And we'd get in trouble from time to time about marketing outside the booth. We'd send the seal out into the crowd and get your hand slapped and with no real ramifications, just stay in the booth. So I guess the advice is, ask for forgiveness instead of permission, but just be aware that even asking for forgiveness may get your hand slapped, and there may be some consequences to whatever actions you take.
Got it, man. I love it. I love it. Sounds like you really pissed them off, huh? All right. I had to throw that out there.
Yeah,
I figured everybody uses that joke when you tell that story, right?
We actually have a no-sit policy at the trade shows, which sometimes the new employees are like, are you serious? Yeah, we're serious, because there's nothing that pushes people away more than to walk up to a booth and people are sitting around doing nothing, or they're engaged in their own thing, they're on their cell phones, whatever it is. You have to be, when you're in the booth, you have to be working the booth. You have to be trying to draw people in, telling the story, getting people to listen to the story, be approachable. And we, as I mentioned, like to use our trade shows as team building events. So we'll typically bring a large group of our folks to the trade shows. We want to make a presence. We want to use it as a team building event. There is a downside to having too many people in the booth. So it's a fine line between having enough people to service the prospects in the booth and having too many people in the booth. You end up in conversations. It looks prohibitive to get in the booth. So, we might have 10 or 12 sales reps at a trade show. You'll never see 10 or 12 in the booth. They're scheduled out walking around, and we've determined that we need 4 people to man the booth for these hours and work that angle. The rest of the people need to be out during their scheduled hours around the show, prospecting for opportunities outside the booth. You don't want to have too few people in the booth. You don't want to have too many people in the booth. And the people that are in the booth need to be engaged, not on their phone, not sitting down, not eating lunch, engaged and work in the booth.